Welcome in, everybody. We are here for episode number 3 of Shoot, another Flyers show. I'm Chris Babos, Philadelphia Sports Network. We've got Eric Reese. Try that again. Eric Reese, Flyers Nation. And we've
However
got
you want to say it, bud.
we got a 1-1 Philadelphia Flyers team after the early start to the late start rather to the Western road trip. Eric, I saw you live tweeting the games alongside of myself. What are
Yes.
your initial thoughts?
Um,
Overall, we'll cover the games individually, but overall, what were your thoughts on the weekend?
I have a few, but I was blown away by how Urson looked in his debut. And on the kind of adverse side of that, I was blown away by, not blown away, but when you see Urson and then you see Fedotov, it's night and day. Like, he just doesn't look comfortable inside the crease. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Overall, there is some tenacity to this team. You know, you go down early and you kind of fight your way back in. That's a sign of a typical Tortorella team. And I like seeing that in the first 2 games of the season, especially in a road trip that was a back-to-back start.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw that through the first, 40, 50 games last year, where it might have been a situation where teams took them a little lightly, but on the same, merit is they battled really hard, and the Flyers were able to kind of work their way to a lot of those early season wins that you didn't quite think that they would ultimately get. If you are tuning in and you're not familiar with what the Philadelphia Flyers did this weekend, let's get you caught up. First game was Friday night out in Vancouver, which is right there
Totally
for the
not
gritty.
gritty. Totally not gritty.
Totally not gritty. Yeah, I
It's
like
absolutely gritty. It's absolutely gritty.
I like the fact that the eyebrows look like eagles' wings a little bit.
Well, that'll same kind of mantra going on here, right?
I need that. I need that as a Philadelphia fanatic. Anyway, I
For sure.
digress. We've got Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. A 3-2 win for the Philadelphia Flyers in a shootout. Like to say that I called that last week on episode number 2. You can check it out. But a 3-2 win in the shootout, and we got to give Eric the credit as well. Morgan Frost with the shootout winner.
Yeah, a
We
little
did
bit
call
of
him
joint action there.
with the GWG on that one. So the goal scorers on the day, Tyson Forrester scored on the power play late in the first, and then you had Cam York with a massive goal in the early third period, 2:48 of the third to tie it up. Nobody scored, obviously, after that. And then the Flyers went on to play a safe overtime period. Neither team really had much of an idea of what they wanted to do, I thought, in the overtime. And then the shootout is always a quick flip.
Going back to that game and that shoot, or not shootout, the before the shootout, the overtime period. It was Sanheim and there was somebody else out there for like 2 minutes, like long shift. They were just beat. I forget who it was off the top of my
I
head
can
right
find
now.
it. I remember who.
Yeah,
I say it might have been Forrester.
It might have been. It was definitely a forward. Um, yeah, I look at that period there, that overtime period. I'm like, dang, man, they really wore down the Flyers for that shootout because I think at the end of the day, yeah, right, it's a skills competition, so it's not necessarily going to sit there and say the freshest team is going to win that, but I would think that the freshest legs might be able to pull off like some of the better deeks, that goes into those scoring plays there in the shootout. And then we saw a lot of the slow dance moves, right? They didn't work on either goaltender. So as soon as it got fast, boom,
Yeah.
we started seeing these goals come in. Yeah, and in the shootouts, Vancouver scored first. Konechny had to keep the Flyers alive, and then he did, and then that's what even allowed Frost to score that game winner. So big assist, even though it was a goal technically, by Konechny in that shootout.
Yeah, absolutely. And with TK, I thought he overall played a solid game in the first game, and then he really showed up in the next game against Calgary. Unfortunately, the wheels kind of fell off in the third period, but it was a 6-3 loss in Calgary. Fedotov was the starting netminder. He looked what I would expect the goaltender to look like in their fourth game in a North American ring.
Yeah, and then that's fair. It's a fair
Fourth official game, anyway.
right. And the very first shot of that game, he reminded me of a little bit of like Roman Shekmanik. He kind of like diving at the puck, and by it didn't go in. He kept it out good, but also like, oh, that's the first shot of the game. Could be a long game. Right before the wheels fell off, though, I will give Fedotov all the credit of a pretty solid third period up until that point because he was getting
Mhm.
really and I know as a backup goaltender, you're sitting there saying, well, that 90% save average, like you kind of want your goaltenders to always at least meet that. And he was very close to that. And then right when, I think I even sent it out to our group chat. I'm like, man, Fedotov is so close to that 90%. And then right from there, he went back down to like an 84 and an 85 around there to finish the night. So I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. But at the end of the day here, it's one game and you hit it right on the head. It's third. It's what is this third like total NHL game as far as starts are concerned.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of meat on the bone clearly, and he's still raw at the NHL level. Um, I think I've seen some wild takes about maybe about some AHL goaltenders who are somehow better than Fedotov, even though they're not the best person on the AHL team. Yeah, I don't know. That was a weird one, but I will say this: I'm not afraid of what Fedotov is going to be, but
Mhm.
I do think that there is a wide amount of room for Kolosov to kind of just stick on the path, and he could be and competing for the NHL job. Probably in the first quarter of the season if Fedotov keeps up that kind of start.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that just based off his sheer athleticism in the net. It's something that Arson, Fedotov, and Kolosov all bring different unique skill sets in what they can provide. Ursom is very steady, very technically sound. Is going to make the saves that he should make, and probably a couple that he shouldn't here and there. Whereas from what I've seen from Fedotov, just gets his big 6'7", 6'8", depending upon who you ask, body in front of that puck, and is extremely athletic for a goalie of that size. And then you go to Kolosov, who's not necessarily a big goaltender, but his athleticism is really what him just getting on the ice at practice at the Flyers training center and stretching. Even that's fast. It's kind of wild
He's
to.
explosive. He is explosive from side to side, and one of the things that I do think Kolosov might have a kind of a leg up, if you will, on Fedotov is I think Fedotov leans on how big he is, how his height a little bit too much. Fedotov is not Pecorine.
Mhm.
Just we're not seeing that at an NHL level. I mean, maybe at one time ago, there was a little bit more to this, but also you got to consider Fedotov is brand new to the NHL. Pecorine, for the most part, was NHL through and through. And so that's the big difference. I don't know that you can sit there and necessarily lean on your size in that sort of way. I would like to see. I would like to see a little bit more composure and stability from Fedotov in a backup role, especially if he uh, Tortorella at the beginning of the year, or before the year started, said that he leaned on Urson just a little bit too much, right? Last year, and then they kind of had to, considering the circumstances with the goaltending. If you don't want to lean on Urson so much, that's more or less saying, hey, we're going to be looking to the backup goaltender to stabilize this tandem.
Yeah, and really, that's I think all Urson needed last season was somebody to come in and stabilize things. And if he needs, 2 days off in a 4, 5, 6 game period, you might be able to give him that rest. So, yeah, no, I definitely think that it's an interesting goaltending situation that has evolved in Philly after, obviously we all thought it was settled for the most part. Um, so it's nice to kind of see at least optimism there, and the fact that there's a couple of guys that John Tortorella can rely on. It seems.
No, one of the interesting things away from the goaltending that Tortorella said after that win in Vancouver was that the penalty kill didn't look good, despite going 5 for 5. Now, at first I think a lot of people could have sat there and said, "Oh, well, 5 for 5. Like, what do you mean it didn't look good?" Look no forward to the next night. And I understand it's a different goaltender, but that defense, whether it's man down situations or even strength, has to help out the goaltender. So I think that goes in to another point that we maybe want to discuss here. How do you feel about the defensive play in their own zone?
Well, defensive play in their own zone. That's actually something that I wrote about earlier today on Philly Sports Network. Uh, Trying something out called Broad Street Stats. Taking a look at some of the hockey models that are out there, and I definitely will come out and say that it's not something that I've studied a ton of before. So it's been very interesting for me to kind of look more deeply at it. And in those stats, it didn't necessarily look good for the Philadelphia defense on a couple of players. Now, Cam York, Travis Sanheim, top 1, 2 defensemen, fantastic games. York's just phenomenal, coming very strongly into his own as a top pair defenseman. I think he's 24, if I remember that from earlier. And that's something that you don't really have to worry about with that top pair. With even going back to like Ivan Provorov, it was, is Provorov a top pair defenseman or is Provorov a top 4 defenseman? So starting there, you have the top portion of the defensive unit handled, which is good, and that's strong.
No, I agree, and there's a part of me that thinks that the defense is a little bit overexposed right now because of who is in the lineup and who is missing out of the lineup. Nick Seeler obviously is a guy that's going to be getting in front of pucks and helping the goaltender. That's a big help to a goaltender. You're kind of, allowing these extra minutes from Zamola, and everybody's, sitting there. Zamola hasn't looked good. You're right. There have been times where Zamola hasn't looked good. Also, Ristolainen hasn't looked the best either. And I think it's a lot to ask for to rely on guys like Eric Johnson more than, those two. Now, considering how
I will say, in Eric Johnson's defense, I've thought he's actually played fairly well.
But that's the thing.
For what I would expect Eric Johnson, but you are 100% correct on your point.
That's the thing. Like, for us to say that Eric Johnson has played well, I mean, we're not expecting him to play better than Ristolainen, right? We're not expecting him. I mean, maybe we do expect him to play better than Zamola just because of the veteran. But at the same time, it's like that can't be an excuse for so much longer because Zamola's been around. Like Zamola, third, fourth season, in the NHL at this point, he's getting to the point where it's like, do you expect more from him? I, on the other hand, would like to see Emil Andre. I would like to see him get an opportunity because that's kind of who you thought would have at least a game by now. And who knows if he'll be in the lineup tonight. I know earlier that guys like Scott Lawton and Rasmus Ristolainen were not in the morning skate. So if that's an indicator of anything, which I don't think it is, I think they just weren't in the morning skate. But if that is an indicator of anything, then all eyes on Emil Andre tonight. That's who really should be getting your spotlight. Not that he, is somebody that people think he's going to come in and just wreck house, but you want to see how he stands up, because if he stands up well, then now you got to kind of think between him and Zamola, and you got to figure out what's going to kind of sink or swim until Seeler gets back into the lineup.
So diving into Igor Zamola a little bit, on Friday night against Vancouver, statistically, according to the hockey stat cards on Twitter at hockey stat cards, pretty easy.
By the way, I hate the hockey stat cards so much. I think it's just a lazy way to indicate things like, oh, it says, he was bad. I'm like, you do know that the Forrester goal, I don't know if it happens without, a clean entry pass from Zamola himself. Just going to say, like, there are defensive things that he struggled with, but there are points on the scoreboard that decides a win and a loss that he absolutely connected with.
No, absolutely. I will say that he did get a blue check. Well, I guess it's a graph line, a blue graph line for offense. So I mean, there's that. But he was statistically ranked as the worst skater on the day, which was wild. The next night, he was the third ranked worst skater on the day. Jamie Drysdale was the worst ranked skater on the day. Both of them finished -2 in Calgary. Zamula was also -2 against Vancouver. Now, yes, the plus minus stat doesn't say everything,
Right.
but if you're on goals for 5-on-5 play, never exactly a good thing. And it's one of those things that could get somebody pulled out of the lineup if there's healthy bodies to go into the lineup, like you were
The
saying.
very first goal but Calgary scored, that was a puck battle that Zamula absolutely had to win. But it was also a freak goal because it's like, okay, that puck deflects and it just bounces off a shoulder. Now, I saw Tortorella on the bench doing one of these. He says, he's arguing with the official. I didn't see it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it looked a little bit too sly to me for me to pick it up. It is what it is. But that is behind the boards there, you have to win that battle to make sure that that's not even a thing.
No, absolutely. And before I forget, Daniel Berry, thank you very much for stopping by. We definitely appreciate the support here. We're gonna move a little quick here, and we can fill out the end of the show. That's not going to be a problem in any way. But Edmonton Oilers on the docket tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern, Rogers Arena, up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. You've got the bet.
Rogers Place.
Rogers Place. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
yes,
I almost messed up my preview like twice.
Yep. Rogers Place. Arena is Vancouver.
Yes.
And you've got a stunner. I mean, I guess, is it shocking that the Edmonton Oilers are 0-3 after a long journey to the Stanley Cup Finals? They lost, and an offseason in which you weren't exactly sure what was gonna come. You've got Leon Draisaitl now re-signed, and you've got that kind of core locked back up, but you've got an 0-3 team, and the thing that really stunned me the most, Connor McDavid is a -5 on the season.
Defensively, maybe they're the responsibility is not there quite yet, but it should be from those star guys. It's absolutely stunning to see a 0-3 Oilers team who is basically averaging 1 goal a game. 2 goals against, I guess their second game in because they were shut out at one point, and then another goal.
And that was Chicago.
Right. So, and in Chicago being a game where, quite frankly, I'm like, well, if you ask me, 10 out of 10 times, well, maybe not 10 out of 10 times because there's going to be an upset.
I give you 9 out of 10 times Edmonton should be.
Right. You know where I'm going with this, right? So it's exactly what I was going to say here. Like, they should absolutely have a win. What doesn't sit right with me is it would be the most Philadelphia thing for a team who doesn't have a win to win. That does not sit right with me.
Yeah.
But like, I don't even think I'm jinxing it, so everybody can hold that because if you've been a Philadelphia fan amongst any Philadelphia sport, by the way, it would be the most Philadelphia thing. We're talking about a city, and I'm a Philadelphia fan through and through. But we're talking about a city that's seen like 3 championships lost in a matter of like a week and a half.
Not even that, the last 3 years. And
wasn't there like the Union and the Super Bowl? Right.
Yeah. But now, if you even extrapolate that further, the last 3 years and all of the close calls and getting to, the Super Bowl, getting to the World Series, and this Phillies run particularly, I know this isn't our Phillies podcast, but this Phillies run was particularly deflating because everyone bought into, okay, this is the year that like somebody's finally gonna bring it to Broad. And then they lose in 4 to the Mets. And you're just like, wait, how are we back here again? Like, we let ourselves get to here, and really you should only let yourself get to like here. And in
a different sense, and I'm sure that Zach will, could have something to say when we go and flip it to birds later, but in a different sense, I've been saying the same thing about the 76ers, where it's like, I'm going to sit there and say this take me in particular as the most casual person who will only watch basketball in the playoffs because I don't care. It is how it goes. If I had to pick, though, I'm a Sixers fan because it's Philadelphia. So there you go. But at the end of the day here, I look at the Sixers and I'm like, man, with all the expectations that you guys have been beating me over the head with for the last like 5 to 10 years, the whole process, all of this, yada, 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 Tankadelphia, getting all these things to ensure that you guys would be a playoff team. And then just to see nothing, but also to see the whole Flyers rebuild and to be on the cusp of maybe a playoff spot last year, I'm starting to think to myself, man, people are really displacing their frustration in Philadelphia. I think there should be more heat on the Sixers than there is on the Flyers.
I think it's just apathy for a lot of people in regards to the Sixers at this point, because I said yesterday in a conversation that I was having, and they were like, who's the next Philadelphia championship team? And my first thought is like the Phillies. Okay, cool. They may or may not do it. Baseball is incredibly random. The Eagles, they beat the Browns by 4.
I will say if Sirianni gets out of here, then maybe, but that'll be a conversation for about an hour from now.
Yeah. That's flipping the birds, but I will say they beat the Browns by 4. Nobody was really dancing down broad on that one.
No.
You've got the Sixers. Joel Embiid is one of the best players, if not a top.
And he's done playing back-to-back games for the rest of his career,
as he should be.
I didn't know the whole news behind it, but yeah,
he just hasn't really been injury free in the playoffs, and part of it has been freak luck. You get elbowed in the orbital bone, you break your orbital bone, and in the playoffs you try to play through it, but you're not 100% by any stretch. So anyway, getting all the way back to the Philadelphia Flyers and hockey, which is what we're here for. Edmonton Oilers 0-3, Philadelphia Flyers 1-1. Expectation, I would think, is Sam Ersson goes tonight. Looked fantastic against Vancouver.
Confirmed really by Torts, by the way.
All right, cool. So then you really will need Sam to come up, I think, in order to pick up a big win. Even though the Edmonton Oilers are struggling, it could very well be an opportunity for a Matvei Michkov or for Tyson Forrester, who's again unleashed that great shot in Vancouver, to pick up some points against a team that is not as defensively structured as they need to be, as has been shown by giving up 6, 5, and then 4 goals in 3 games.
Well, real quick, because Luchenko is back in the lineup tonight. He was in the lineup against Vancouver. Looked fine, right, for his NHL debut against a true NHL team. Taken out against Calgary, he didn't. Basically, it was a decision where they didn't want to give him too much back to back. They wanted to, have him kind of stand off, and they wanted to end it putting Cates, which I totally agree with. And they had him watching film, obviously going through practice yesterday. The question was posed to Tortorella if Luchenko will be matched up against McDavid. And Tortorella, I love the answer. I'm not afraid to put him up against anybody.
You have to have confidence.
You have to have confidence in your players. You're putting them back into the lineup, and guess what? The person on the other side is the person on the other side. Mm-hmm. So what do we think tonight about Luchenko if he does get, if he is on the ice for a considerable, not considerable, but like, for enough of an impression against, McDavid? What do we think? What would be, I guess, the result of that? Do you think he would be able to hold his ground against what's, quote unquote, one of the best players, if not the best player in the NHL?
From a speed basis, yes. From a hockey basis, I have no idea. But having said that, I don't know who else on this team is really going to be able to stay with McDavid in that facet. So at that point, if you've got somebody that you think can handle it, why not give him that opportunity? And who knows, maybe you strike lightning in a bottle where his speed then allows Philadelphia to counter against, again, a team that's struggling, leaking goals right now. And I don't think I mentioned this fact that all three of those losses were home games.
Yes. Yes, they're 0-3 at home, Edmonton, and the Flyers going to Edmonton tonight. So again, this could be an opportunity for Philadelphia to keep rolling with that streak that's that adverse streak, if you will, for Edmonton. I will say this: if you think about the centers, and obviously Tortorella throughout the night, like he usually does, will kind of start to cycle out the lines and as he sees fit. I do not think Frost will be the defensive kind of center that will match up against McDavid. I think you really have two options because you're probably not going to get Paling to do it, even though I like Paling as a defensive kind of, he's a fourth liner that has offensive, hands here and there, but he has more of a defensive game. As seen on the penalty kill, things like that. I thought his penalty kill, I thought he was actually one of the better parts of the penalty kill in Calgary. So, but I do not think that he'll be a matchup. So it kind of leaves Luchenko and it kind of leaves Couturier. Is Couturier too slow? And that would go to your point of Luchenko's speed matching up with McDavid.
And here's where I think that could actually be really smart on the case of John Tortorella. And like you said, the way they circle lines and go through things like that is there's a definite reality where Luchenko gets the first period or the first period and a half, and then you cycle in a Couturier. You can cycle in a Frost against him, I guess, if you want to try that. But if you focus on Luchenko and then you have Couturier late in the game, hopefully at that point with the Flyers being up and leading, then you can kind of at least try to mitigate the superstar talent that the Edmonton Oilers
I just held on mute for a second because Lenny was barking in the background. But I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I'm actually pulling up the lines right now just to kind of and projected lines, by the way, always projected lines. We go through this before the game starts. But yeah, your top six centers would be Frost and Luchenko tonight. Right? No, not really anything kind of shocking there. By the way, we talked about this before on our last podcast as we previewed Vancouver and Calgary, and we talked about the possibility where Luchenko moves into the top six and Couturier is on the third line. So here we are, almost immediately this season in the first road trip. I look at this and then you look at the help around. I think Luchenko with Travis Konechny, by the way, which was a huge point of emphasis in the preseason as far as chemistry. Luchenko wanted to play with Travis Konechny. It's somebody that he kind of looked over to as far as when he was drafted to the Flyers. Mm-hmm. I do think, especially with Tyson Forrester on that line, because Forrester, look, agree with it or not, and I can see both sides here, but Forrester was chippy when he needed to be, even though he took an excessive amount of minutes as far as penalties, but he's a guy that he has offense and he protects the puck well. I think that second line there with Forrester, Luchenko, and Konechny is a very underrated, two-way line across the board. So you know what? Let's put Luchenko against McDavid and see what of it, because if he does swim there, it's add that to the notch of the reasons why Luchenko should probably be here past 9 games if he can keep up with a guy like McDavid with the line it is on.
I will say it was quite noticeable that he was not in the lineup against Calgary. Just from some of the defensive plays and his speed, you just noticed that it's not that. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. You just noticed he wasn't there.
Yep.
Let's let's head into the prediction of this game. We've got the Edmonton Oilers, Philadelphia Flyers tonight at 10 o'clock here East Coast. So once again, Flyers after dark. I always love it. And I'll start with you. I'll let you start first. What do you got for Flyers Oilers tonight?
God, I hate doing the cop-out answer 3-2. So just because of that, I'm not. Uh, but I also don't think it'll be 3-1. I can't see Edmonton only scoring one, they're averaging to one goal like they have.
Mhm.
So let's say 4-2, but I think in favor of the Flyers, and there will be a extra marker, empty net marker. That's how it
Okay.
gets to be 4-2. I don't know
Okay.
who's going to score that. I mean, let's say Lachenko. Let's give
Oh
Lachenko
wow. Okay.
that. Yeah.
So empty net goal for Jet Luchenko would be his first NHL goal. Well, that not necessarily his first NHL goal, but
You're right. It would be like the
could.
cheap stat that says it is the goal, but it's like, is it? I mean,
Well, I mean, it would, but if it's 4-2, there's nothing to say he couldn't have two goals.
Well,
You know,
that's fair.
so you can't exactly say, but 4-2, I do like that call. I actually think it's gonna be a night where the Flyers offense gets some spacing and gets to get something clicking. So I actually am gonna go a 5-3 win for
Wow.
Philadelphia.
Okay.
I think Michkov does it tonight. I know I said it last week. I think Michkov gets on the board with his first goal. I think they're probably looking too hard to get that first goal for him just to kind of get it off of his back, I think, a little bit. Because he's got to be thinking about it. That's what
Oh my
everybody's
God, Konechny's thinking
was.
about it. If you heard his answers earlier, so for sure.
Yeah. So he did get his first point against Calgary. RIP to anybody that turned the game off and we're like, it's 6-3 or 6-2. I'm not.
Right.
You missed a bit of history, and that's unfortunate. Thankfully, with Twitter and X and all the socials, you can get that clip pretty
You
easy.
want to talk a little bit of Mishkov?
Yeah, let's talk about a little. What do you got on Misha?
Yeah, I think with any highly touted prospect, there's a learning curve in the NHL.
Mhm.
And that goes back to even Bedard, like obviously Bedard got hurt in his first year. And, you have to learn to kind of keep your head up, things like that. Mishkov, I think, he got his welcome to the NHL too. But at the same time, he's making these plays where, everybody's on the same page. And this is something that Konechny himself drove home. Everybody's on the same page. We just need to execute better. Talking about himself, talking about everybody for the most part. And I think that he was drilling that home about the Calgary game because obviously I thought that he played he executed very well in Calgary. Shorthanded goal, power play goal, even though the power play goal was a little bit of garbage time. That's fine. Still, it counts, right? To what you're saying, I do think that Mishkov gets another point tonight. I'm not sure that it's a goal, but he is so close to making a ton of plays with Konechny. And I know that Tortorella said he wants Mishkov to become as comfortable as possible. He absolutely said that there's chemistry with Konechny that can't be denied, but he's unwilling. And to be fair, I kind of thought this from the beginning. When you put Mishkov on the left wing, well, Konechny's not moving. He's been a right wing. He's going to be a right wing. So what do you expect of Mishkov? I expected him to be a right wing. I actually thought Forrester or Tippett would be on the first line,
Same.
So seeing that now with, the chemistry that Mishkov says with Konechny, and then seeing what the lineup is when you got Matvey and Tippett centered by Frost, that was more so what I thought that we would see because of the chemistry in the preseason with Matvey and Frost. To your point, because of that, and because of I thought that was more of the natural chemistry, and I know Torts, he's a coach, he feels, and he sees it on more of a daily basis than any one of us. But to me, just because of the preseason and what I was able to see, and how these two players kind of work in conjunction almost beautifully with each other, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised even that Mishkov does score the goal, like you said, because of that chemistry between him and Frost. Also, random shout out to that Bobby Brink sauce pass to who was that? Who was that? Farabee?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Yeah. That was so pretty.
Has nothing
That
to
was
do
such
with
a
the
pretty
point, but it
pass.
was so good.
That was such a pretty pass. Following the Edmonton Oilers, because we will not be back until next Tuesday. So we've got 2 more games to kind of cover real briefly. We've got the Seattle Kraken in Seattle, the final Flyers after dark, Thursday night.
Thank God.
Seattle, they'll play Nashville before, they'll play Nashville tonight actually at 8 o'clock. They are 1-2 on the early season. I like the team that the Kraken have built. I like a lot of their prospects. They're where the Kraken should be as an expansion team that isn't the Las Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, I going into that. I mean, it's just like it's one of those games where I always have it highlighted on my schedule. Before the Kraken, I'll put this little tidbit out there. It was what was it? Fansided, yeah, Fansided is where I was writing for just a little bit before the Kraken even paid their due to like be an NHL team. Like I was on board as one of the people who were writing for the Kraken, and it was just during a time where where it was just nothing but articles like, who do you think they're going to take in the expansion draft? And I was like, please take JVR, because that would be so much off of our books. And they took Carson Twernsky, and I was like, that would be the most Dave Hackstall maneuver, because it's like, hey, I'm not taking anything from the Flyers books, So
the smartest thing they could do as a franchise.
Yeah, and it really, I wish they did. I wish they helped. I just wish they helped us a little bit more. But then again, I don't know how much it would have helped. Chuck Fletcher was the GM, and he loves, putting us cap strapped. So, I look back at a team like that with sort of endearments, and I know it's kind of like, a weird thing to do, but dude, these 10 o'clock games, when you're sitting there, you're just like, all right, yeah, here's a 10 o'clock game. Like, I'll be in that game, like just ready to go, because I don't know, man. There's something about the Seattle Kraken where if you had to pick a favorite team from the West, that would be my team. So I'm so excited for that game, and then after that, Flyers come home, Wells Fargo Center, baby,
and another scrappy game against the Vancouver Canucks.
Run it back.
Vancouver, our first game out in Vancouver was fantastic. So anybody that has the chance to get to that home opener should be an excellent game. Let's we skipped over because we can go back and put it on socials. Seattle, sure. What do you got for a prediction on Seattle?
Oh man, Seattle. Yeah, there's a long pause here because I'm in like critical thinking. You want to go first, and then you want to go first, and I can like hop off.
So Seattle, they have a day off. They do have to travel back into the States, to Seattle, Washington. Honestly, I think they would be happy to come home at 2-2. I think Seattle wins that one 4-2. And I don't think it's not like an uninspiring. It's just a good hockey game. Seattle has the 3-2 lead going into the third, hits the empty netter, and they get to, is it carp? I think it's carp that they chuck all over the place there. They can throw the fish all over the place in Seattle after the 4-2 win.
No, isn't it a tragedy that they can't throw the octopus because it's not original? It's literally the Kraken. I mean, just let them do it. No, I you know what? Let's go 2-1. I think it's a low scoring defensive struggle actually out there, and for no reason, just different from the scores that we picked so far. 2-1. I think I have to give a decider there. 2-1 Flyers. 2-1 Flyers.
All right, 2-1 Flyers. So
that's a pretty good start to it all. The 3-1-0. That would
be
for me prediction was
And then we come home for Saturday night, Broad Street fight against the Vancouver Canucks. 3-2 shootout win last time. I think the barn gets jumping. I'm gonna say it's a 5-3 win Flyers on that one. I know I predicted the same thing for Edmonton, but you know what? That's what I said, and I'm gonna stand by it. So we'll go 5-3 Flyers. 2 goals for Tyson Forrester
Chris
in that home opener.
Yeah, you're standing on business, and I like it. I'm gonna stand on business too. I'm gonna say Erson shutout. Let's go 2-0. I don't think. I think we got to get the Flowers to Vancouver. They're a chippy team, so are the Flyers. it wasn't. It was goals were coming out of premium on night one, but it is night one. Like you know how you go into week one of the NFL, you see some sloppy football. But I think that it's not necessarily going to be a sloppy game. I think there's going to be some more defensive structure by the time they get to Philadelphia. I think Steelers in the lineup that will help. 2-0.
2-0. All right. So there you have the predictions for the week. Edmonton, Seattle, Vancouver, 3 more hockey games. It's hockey season. It's lovely. And it's all of the freaking time right now, which is just incredible. Eric, anything you want to plug, promote, give any shout outs, anything like that to end our episode here today?
No, every Tuesday, just come over here, watch Shoot, another Flyers show, and it's gonna be streaming on the PSN Philly Sports Network Twitter. It's gonna be on Philly Sports Network YouTube. It's gonna be live. If you click underneath live, you'll see it there. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much everything. Go to 7:30, so about another 45 minutes. Flipping the birds. We'll be talking about how we want probably Sirianni out of here, and just a bunch of other things like that. Flipping the birds, and yeah, I don't know. Again, same way. Go on to Flipping the Birds. Click on the link there. It will be streaming on Twitter. It'll also be on YouTube, right underneath Philly Sports Network. If you search that in the little search bar, you'll see it on live. And we will probably try to branch out since we're starting to, kind of bang on numbers with Flipping the Birds. I would say let's kind of stretch out to Instagram and kind of have some extra stuff there. We're growing. This is episode 3, so the sky's the limit from here.
Absolutely. And Flyers Nation is where you can find the hockey musings of one Mr. Eric Reese. And I got to say, one of my favorite live coverage people in the business. If you are not able to catch Flyers After Dark, you can catch at Eric Reese FN on X and Twitter for his. And now I get to promote myself because I do the same thing.
Please,
I just don't think I'm quite as good.
You promoted me, and I was like, oh wow, I forgot to promote anything about that. That's I am not good at this.
Well, I'd let you set up Flipping the Birds. So I also see Babos writes. I pretty much do the same thing, live game coverage, just my real time thoughts, and then also trying to, hey, here's what happened, so that if you're not able to catch the games, you can kind of check a thread and catch up and watch a highlight and just kind of see what the thought process was of some of the people that are in and around the team, or try to be in and around the team as much as we possibly can. So like Eric said, episode number 3 here, Shoot Another Flyer show. We got 66 beautiful souls and counting joining us here. So tell a friend that likes Flyers hockey, and we'll keep getting some great content out for you guys between Flyers Nation and then of course with Philly Sports Network, where we've got you covered all week long. Yeah, that's what we got. Shoot another show. And got something real quick.
I'll put it like this, for all the people who say, don't yell shoot. No, real fans yell shoot. Forever yell shoot. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Even when Drysdale's holding the puck for too long. Tortorella said, hey, he's going to be one of those guys who gets called out for passing. People look in this league and say, hey, it's something that they'll pick up. He needs to learn. He needs to shoot the puck more. So when Drysdale has the puck, when it comes to the Wells Fargo Center, yell shoot and tell them it came from us.
There you go. Shoot another Flyer show, because in order to score, you got to shoot the puck. Let's go battle the Edmonton Oilers tonight, 10 o'clock. Eric, we'll be chatting, but I hope you have yourself a wonderful night. Stay tuned in a little bit. We've got Flipping the Birds, and we will catch you all next Tuesday night here for Shoot Another Flyer show.